evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Ever More podcast, the Newcastle United podcast and Ever More YouTube channel. I'm your host, Chris. I'm alongside Mark, and back from his COVID stint out is PK. How are we doing, lads?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling, PK? More importantly, mate, are you fully recharged?
Yeah, you know what? I feel quite energetic, to be honest. I'm on day 10 of testing positive. I'm testing at about like 7:30 every morning, and this morning I did the test in about 15 minutes. It was negative, and I thought, get in, happy days, finally. Then I took the dog around the block, came back, and there was a very faint line again. So, but still a bit positive, but just been working from home, so I feel all right. Feel all right.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. It's just a gentle reminder to anybody who doesn't know that horrible bastard COVID is still lurking behind the shadows. He's a little bit like a ship reserve player you can't get rid of, isn't he? You know, you think you've lost him, and then he just suddenly resurfaces in the cup game, and you go, "Fuck, there he is." But,
yeah, would have said shite snail, but it looks like he might be away to Stoke by the look of things.
Perfect segue, mate. Yes, perfect segue into some of the topics tonight. Yes, we'll get stuck into that in a minute. Just before we do, guys, a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come on board. We've got loads of content coming. It's just under PK, as you can see there. We've got plenty of transfer talk to still go through before the season starts. Obviously, we'll be back with the normal Evermore podcast week in, week out when the season kicks off, which isn't too far away. So we're going to get stuck in here and start off with the first topic, which is the topic on everybody's mind, really. A bit of transfer frustration. And is it time to splash the cash? PK, I'm going to come to you first on this one, mate, as you return into full health, hopefully. It's been a frustrating time, isn't it, mate, in the transfer window recently, obviously, after the early success with the defence. We seem to have really come unstuck with some of the key targets. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who have asked the question, you know, where's all this money? And is it time to potentially splash the cash and step a little bit away from this thrifty strategy that the owners have adapted, mate?
So, you know that I've got a slightly different opinion to you on this one. I think once we signed Botman, Luke Edwards gets a lot of stick on Twitter, as we know. I think, you know, that draws people to him. I think he said that there was going to be a bit of a period of quiet whilst, you know, after we signed Botman, whilst we then started to look at going for forward players. So I'm not frustrated at all. We've got another 5.5, nearly 6 weeks of the transfer window to go. I mean, yes, there's an argument to say you want your players in for pre-season, you want to bed them in, but then another argument to suggest that the likes of Bruno didn't take very long to settle into the English league. So I'm not, if it's foreign players that we're going to sign, of course. So I'm not massively frustrated. In terms of the question, splash the cash, you know my views on that. I like the fact that we're not being taken for mugs. You know, it took a good month to sign Botman, didn't it? There was to and fro-in, the Italian press giving it big licks that he wanted to go to Milan, he wanted the Champions League, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, at the end of the day, we got him over the line. I just think, and I like the fact that they're holding their nerve on players. I think we're 2 years too shy, and I've said this quite a bit. You know, we're 2 years shy on signing some of the players potentially that we've been linked with. So for me, I like the fact that they're doing their due diligence. We talk about no dickhead policy over and over again. And of course, I wrote a piece last week for you guys that went online about not signing dickheads. I still like the fact we're not splashing stupid money. You know, it's not our money, so it doesn't really matter. But I just like that they're not being taken a ride out of. I like that effectively they walked away from Ekatike when his agent started asking for silly, you know, stupid add-ons like a fucking sunbed for Gaza's sister and all that kind of nonsense, right? So
inflatable unicorns.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that they can't set a precedent of overpaying. I also understand that you want the players in that you want to get in. Sometimes you've got to pay the fee to get them. So it's definitely a balancing act. FFP, you know, from what we've been reading is we've got fucking loads of money to spend if we really want to spend that. But I just don't know. I'm happy with what we're doing so far. I just think that which shouldn't be taken for a ride. You know, if Leverkusen effectively wanted 60 odd million for Diaby, okay, he said today that he said thanks very much, Lee. I appreciate that. My round next, I suppose. That he wants to stay at Leverkusen for another season. I just think, you know, do we spend 60 million on a Diaby or a 50 million on a Paqueta, or do we do things sensibly, which then I think, the higher the transfer fee, the higher the wages sometimes. And then I know we had that conversation when I was last on maybe 3 weeks ago about smashing a wage structure, and we had a for and against it. So I think it all just fits in with the plan of not overspending, not overcommitting, and just doing things slowly and sensibly. Otherwise, could we fall into a trap like Everton? I mean, dare I say, like Leeds, who obviously mortgaged their club on the Champions League back 18 years ago now, I think it was. So I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to see us spend on a big player, but A, will they come to us? We don't have European football yet. Or do we keep within sensible spending and get the right caliber and the right kind of characters to come to the club? That's the balance for me.
It'll be interesting. Look, we are live tonight, guys, so please jump in the comments. A little bit of love for you there, PK from BT.
He says, thank you very much, BT. Yeah, I've got Sky, but
we love a bit of BT Sports.
I appreciate that.
We've got Johnny Toon for Live in the comments, even at you too, mate. Yeah, and Johnny Toon for Live's put a comment in there just to bring you in here, Mark, as well, on the back of this comment as well. So Johnny Toon for Live saying as much as he wants a right winger and a good striker, what do us fans know more than the professional people who obviously it's job to buy the players and who have the stats and the knowledge? Chill out, lads and lasses. Yeah, he makes a valid point. I think I'll kind of give my take on the reasons why I'm wondering why they're not, potentially playing ball a little bit more in terms of the values that are lobbied at these players, mate. But what's your kind of take on it, Mark? I mean, do you see it from PK's angle, or are you kind of thinking that maybe, given the nature of how important these positions are, you've got to pay the going rate?
There's an element of both. I think Geordie Toon for Life has it right. Chill out a little bit for some that are desperate for the money to be spent. There are people far better placed in the club than we certainly are. It's an interesting one because there are places there are players that you need in that squad. There are players that desperately need to come in to come into the first team to build the squad up. But it's got to be done sensibly. You can't just go in rashly into some of these players and start throwing huge amounts of money at them, because that does then limit the ability to do anything else. If the season, for example, doesn't start particularly well, if you start throwing huge numbers now, does it limit your ability to January to maybe pick up one or two if you have injury problems as well? So there's always that consideration for further down the line. I think the approach that they've had is sensible. They're not going to be taken for mugs. They're not going to be held over a barrel and have to pay stupid fees. They're looking for the right deal, and if it doesn't come along, they're happy to wait. So I'm in the camp of PK. I think it's a sensible approach. I don't think it's let's just go out and spend it, because I think that would be the wrong approach, and you could end up firefighting then if you do suffer injury problems. So to me, yes, sensible approach. Find the player at the right price. If it takes a little longer, it takes a little longer. There are good players at the squad now. You could start the season comfortably with them. It might not be what you want, but you can start with them and then build from there if you pick up one or two maybe before the end of the window as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see that point as well. That there's a comment that BT threw in there as well that I just wanted to kind of pull up, and it would be very good business if we can bring in a striker on a free, with his wages being on less than 100 grand a week. If we can't, then we're looking to spend upwards to 35 million. Now, for me, I see PK's point as well, and I see yours too, Mark. But I think the main thing for me is that the key area and the most expensive area in any football club is goals. We all know that. It has been that way, for a long, long time now. We need goals. Eddie Howe's already come out and said we need goals. We don't score enough goals in the final third. The midfield doesn't contribute enough. We said this on What's Going On Monday, Mark, didn't we? We signed a defensive midfielder. He ended up our second highest goal scorer. So, we're not getting enough goals out of the midfield. We're not getting enough goals out wide. Callum Wilson is an unbelievable striker. When he's fit, I think he's one of the best strikers in the league. He could run Harry Kane for the Golden Boot in my eyes any day of the week if he was fit for a full season. PK disagrees, but if he was fit for a full season, he'd certainly be in the top 5, PK, if he was fit. But I think my point is, just to finish my point, mate, is that we're really threadbare in those areas. I mean, Chris Wood cost 25 million from a panic buy in January, and we're starting to balk at the idea of paying 35 to 40 million for strikers with better goal returns and more ability and higher ceilings. For me, it doesn't sit quite well with me. I do trust the board and I do trust what they're doing. There's obviously a link to a young striker, which we'll probably talk about in a minute. But, we do need cover for that area. And I think with Diaby being so expensive, Isak, for me, I think they've done the right thing, because if you've got 6 goals in a season, you're not worth 76 million quid. I'm sorry, you're not. I don't care what league you're playing in and who you are. But with Diaby, it was so clear that the right-hand side of the team is out of balance, that 60 million quid for a really top European winger at the minute is probably the going rate. But, it is a frustration. But sorry, PK, bring you in now, mate. What were you going to say there, bud?
The balance for me is Callum Wilson your number one striker going into next season? For me, he absolutely is. He won't score as many goals as Harry Kane, but if he played 38 games, which would be a fucking miracle, right? Because he isn't going to. If he played 38 games, he'd probably score 18 to 20 goals for us, which is, impressive, really impressive. But they're not going to go and spend 40, 50, 60 million quid on a striker and put Callum Wilson on the bench.
That's true.
Which is why that Ekatike, or the new lad that's being linked to, I know nothing about, but I've just seen his stats, excites me more. A young, hungry striker who wants to come and learn his trade off someone like Callum Wilson, but also will be able to come in and, we're not talking about a Duff Chris Wood or a Shite Snail Dwight Gale kind of player. We're talking about a player that can come in and can score goals, where you look at Iheanacho, that Leicester, as an example. There's talk about Leicester needing a fire sale today. Did I read that right?
That's correct. We should be all over that. We should be all over those players. If that's the
somebody
case,
like him at maybe 25, 30 million quid, but, which isn't crazy money, as we know. Sitting here a year ago, we would have think, fuck me, that is crazy money, but it isn't in this day and age for us now with the money that we've got. But who is happy to sit on the bench and is happy to play that bit part to start with and to develop, because we know Callum Wilson will get half a season, unfortunately. So a player that like him that can come off the bench and can score goals for us, and then spend that bit more money on a right winger, or on a player that's going to be able to play in midfield with, no doubt, Joe Linton and Bruno. So that for me are the key areas. But I just don't think they want to go balls deep on a 50 or 60 or 70 million pound centre forward when they've got Callum Wilson.
I think that's what Morgul Blade's saying in the comments as well. I think he agrees with you, saying that, I think Wilson coming back last season, Mark, as well, to bring you in on this, I think that kind of threw the striker search into a little bit of a different direction, didn't it? Because he come back so fresh, so sharp, and he just looked like he was the main man, didn't you? I think if he'd come back and he'd struggled, and he'd struggled to get into the game and he looked rusty, I think potentially they might have went all out for a striker to replace him rather than to learn off him. Do you think that was the case, mate?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think certainly if he'd come back and hadn't shown that level of performance, on the return from injury, then you're definitely looking at and going and as a replacement, not as a backup or somebody to take over from him in the future. Because he came back in that, I think you then go, well, we don't need a number 9. We need somebody to come in and fill that gap if he is then injured, which we know is probably more likely than not. So you start to look at the younger strikers that can come in and not be that first choice. And I think that's possibly one of the problems, is that players are going to want to come in and have game time, and there's just not while you play one up front, you're not going to be able to give those new signings that amount of game time in that position.
There's always that danger as well, as Johnny Toon for Life is saying, if you sign a player, you throw big money at them and they end up being a bit of a flop. You've seen how crazy people are acting towards Darwin Núñez because he's missing chances in training. Christ almighty. I bet you Shearer missed shitloads of chances in training. We put him in the game,
should we
bag loads.
Should we just remind people that it took Dennis Bergkamp a season to settle in at Arsenal? We're going about 20 odd years, but
we live in the world, wasn't he? So people called him that.
We live in the world of snap judgments, though, don't they? They see one shot in training, and all of a sudden he's shite, and it's just crazy. It's the modern day football world, isn't it? So BT saying if the club starts buying the wrong players, then the fans will be on the back. Absolutely chill out. We have 5 weeks. No, it's a fair comment. We've got our very own Lee Forster in the comments. He's saying what's been proven is not every fan only wants a team that tries. Some bedwetters aren't happy unless we're spending 40 or 50 million on players. But to be fairly, if they're the right players, mate, then you're happy to see the 40, 50 million quid spent on them. Do you know what I mean? If they improve the squad. I think you said that to somebody on Twitter, PK, didn't you? The other day you had a chat with a lad on Twitter, and you said that somebody who improves the team is worth spending the money on, isn't it?
Anybody who improves the team. Dan Burn cost us, 13 million quid?
That was a bargain. That was a snip, though. Really,
massive step up from Lascelles, massive step up from Clark and Fernandez. Couldn't give a fuck what money they spend. They spend 200 million quid, fine. They spend 200 million quid. If they spend 50 million quid, but the players come in and improve us, that's really all that matters. It is not our money.
Absolutely. Sean's got a good point there, Mark, as well. Whatever we need to do to challenge the top 6 in 2 seasons time, otherwise a player like Bruno will be gone. That's a really good point. We said that on Monday, didn't we? These players like Bruno and Botman won't hang around if they think you're not ambitious enough.
Go on, PK.
I was going to say our friend Tim Wood from True Faith is adamant that if we don't challenge, within the next couple of years, that the likes of Bruno will be gone. But then, did anybody see the interview that Bruno had? I don't know what it was on, but he was basically saying, he's here and he can see the long-term project. It's not about Champions League today. It's about the project for the future. So, there's two sides to the argument. But you're right. If we're not ambitious and we're not, we're not selling the projects to these guys in the medium term. The Saudis don't want to sit and be mid-table for 4 or 5 years. We all know that. I just think it's a slow and steady wins the race for us. We're not going to challenge for the league this year. That's reality. Doesn't matter if we spend another 200 million quid. I just would rather get the right people in, the right characters. Keep talking about no dickheads, the right characters. And if that means we don't spend 80 million quid on a wanker like Jadon Sancho, I'm sure he's not a wanker, but a flop, let's say, from last season from a Jadon Sancho, then I'm much happier than spending 30 million quid on a Jack Harrison, a young upcoming player that will be with us for years.
Absolutely. It's a good comment there, Mark, from Geordie Jack. The problem seems to be the fans think the asking price is the going rate, when the going rate is what clubs are prepared to pay. You and I spoke about this loads, Mark, haven't we? I mean, I think the problem is in football. I mean, inflation is everywhere, as I said on Monday, didn't I? And no better place than football. I mean, someone like Jack Grealish was worth 100 million because he was worth 100 million at Aston Villa. He wasn't a £100 million player, and he didn't show his £100 million player last season. But the figure for a player who's as influential to his side as Grealish was to Villa is 100 million quid, isn't it? So that's the point we're trying to make, isn't it, about these fees?
Well, every player has a price of their worth to the club, don't they? We've seen this. Grealish, Zaha was priced at 80 million from Palace.
Which was
he's not an 80 million.
He was never worth 80 million quid.
But to Palace, he's worth that amount of money. He's worth that in the points that he wins each season and what he brings to the club. He's not that price with the players, so the value isn't there for that. Grealish, I guess there's a bit more potential there to get to that value, but he had a release clause. And his worth to Villa was that amount. It was going to cost an absolute fortune to replace what he brought to that side, not just in terms of one area of his play. It was multiple different areas that you then have to replace. You're not going to do that in one player. Yeah. So there's that. But going back to that point about sort of the next step, the next couple of seasons, I think you bang on with that. I think Bruno's 24. If he's hitting 26, 27 and is still not at that level of sort of champion, challenging for Champions League. Jesus, I'm struggling today. He's
can't blame the heat anymore. It's cooler.
No, I know. I think he will start to. He still will start to question it and look to maybe he's look for a move to a top side at that point. Similar
to a Cabaye, but maybe not as much of a shithouse potentially as how Cabaye, because he seems to be a different character. That's a good comment from Mark Todd there, I think. Cheers for jumping in the comments, Mark. Like it or not, prices of decent strikers aren't going to go down. I think we should reasonably buy players now before the Premier League shuts down the FFP loopholes. I mean, I don't think there's as many loopholes as there possibly once was, Mark, but it's a fair comment. We've got Jack in the comments too. Great debate, guys. We hope you're doing okay, Jack, as well. I know you had some rough news this week, mate, so we're all thinking of you, buddy. So hope it's all going okay for you, mate. We've got Ugly Bear, Manchester United fan. You're really a Newcastle fan now, Ugly Bear. You might as well just change that tag, you know what I mean, mate? He said once Newcastle United win a trophy or break into the top 6 or 7, we will naturally attract the best players. Yeah, I think that's what you were saying, PK, as well, wasn't it, mate, in terms of that kind of aura of the club. I mean, we love it, the war flags, everything else. Some players buy into that. Other players are going, well, where did they finish? Have they got European football? And that's how they're making the decisions. BT saying if the short-term project for the next 2 years under Howe, then we should buy an experienced striker, irrespective of his age. Yeah, I think there is some cracking deals out there in terms of free transfers. We've talked about Belotti so much, haven't we, lads? That I'm amazed we're not going for something like that. So we'll just have a couple more comments before we move on to the next section. So 2 for life. I think if we had half the sponsorship and income of Man United, then we would splash the cash. But the top 6 in the PL doing everything to stop us growing fast. I think our previous owner threw a spanner in the works there as well, Mark, didn't he? with that one, mate.
Well, we'll go back to that conversation with Kieran Maguire about the funds coming into the club through commercials and sponsorship and stuff. That ruins it, because you haven't got the ability to use more of that as it comes in. It's just not there. The amount that was coming into the club was so small. You just don't have much wriggle room at all, other than the money that comes in from player sales or from match day. There's not really anything else other than the TV rights. You need commercial revenue to be able to build the club at a much quicker leg than he was ever going to be able to.
I mean, you could make an absolute arse of it like Barcelona are, and leverage your own football club against future TV and advertising rights. I mean, that's just fucking bonkers. I mean, we would love to be the size of Barcelona in terms of commercial revenue. Of course we would, but I'd much rather the club was run the way it's being run now than leveraging yourself against the future. I think Burnley financially in the shite, weren't they? They were bought and leveraged, and I think Ugly Bear will tell you, didn't the Glazers do that? Man United remortgaged the club effectively.
They did when they come in, but I think I lost Mark. He looks like he's frozen a bit there. Either he was just completely gripped by your conversation, PK. We have lost Mark. Mark's just dipped away from it. He has been having some computer problems, but yeah, it's interesting just to go through some of the comments before we move on, mate. So Morgan Blade saying there again, Arsenal would have given Bruno more a week than us, as Milan have paid Botman more, but these two guys could become legends. We're not going to show lack of ambition. Again, there is a big selling point to players like that, and kudos to the club for doing that. Jackie Nicholson saying we need to spend surely next season. If we sell players, have a sponsorship deal sorted, it won't affect FFP. Definitely check out the video with Kieran that Adam did. That was an amazing video, and it really tells you a lot about kind of where we are at the minute. I think Mark's just about to come back in the second. There he is. Seamless, Mark. You're back.
Hello again.
He should be on the bottom now, really.
He should be. I think we should elevate you in status, PK. There we go. That's much better. Yes, he's been praying for this moment. But yeah, so Keg's saying the question is, say ASM gets injured long term, who have we got alternatively to play to be able to compete with the top 6? I think none of the existing wingers is good enough. I think that's a really good point. And PK, you're a big fan of this Harrison Word news, aren't you, mate? And if we get him, he could definitely push ASM, I think, for that spot.
I am a fan of Jack Harrison. So Jack Harrison was on loan from Manchester City for 2 years or two seasons before he went permanently. So I think he's only been permanent with them last season, and I'm sure he scored 9 or 10 goals for them and got 6 or 7 assists.
Mark had his stats on Monday, and he did really well last year. 8 goals, Mark, I think, wasn't it?
It's 8 goals, 8 assists, possibly something like that. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It was something like that, and it was 8 goals per the last 2 seasons, I think. So his hit rate is really good for Leeds in the Premier League. That's
better stats than St. Maxim, I'm afraid. Whoever said there, what do we do when St. Maxim gets injured? I mean, as it stands now, you stick Fraser across, or dare I say it, you've got a young man coming through that I think they're going to retain this season called Elliot Anderson, who I watched the 2 friendlies. Fuck me, he looks like a player, mind. I mean, okay, it's pre-season friendlies, but he looks big, he looks strong, he's confident, he wants the ball. Is he ready for the Premier League level? You never fucking know until you chuck him in. He could save us fortunes.
Is this you going back on your word and saying that the Lynch man might have been correct when he said he was a potential superstar and he was going to be the next big thing?
I want photos of that didn't happen. I don't remember that. But I think my in-laws are all Bristol Rovers fans, and it was League 2. I understand that, but loved him. I think you said it on Monday night, didn't you, or whenever it was. He's the Geordie Maradona.
Geordie Maradona is the old.
But I would love. Listen, you know what? I would love to be able. Love to be able to blood a player like him much more than bring in a foreign footballer. Much rather have a Geordie doing it.
Oh, mate. I mean, if we can get Elliot Anderson up to that level, then absolutely brilliant. Listen, but we're going to move on. We'll pick up some. We'll have loads of comments there. We're going to pick up some of the comments in a minute. But there's great interaction, guys. But we'll come back to some of these towards the end of the show as well, if we can. But moving on to the next section is the news that Jamaal Lascelles will be retaining the captaincy. Now, I'll get the lads' opinions on this in a minute, but I'm just going to read out what Eddie Howe said about Jamaal. So he said that Jamaal is our captain. He led the team really well last season, whether he was playing or not playing. He was a big presence. He was very positive influence on the squad. He has been excellent in pre-season. Now, I love Eddie Howe. I'm not sure he was watching the same game I was, because Jamaal Lascelles didn't look excellent to me, mind you. He might be excellent off the pitch in terms of whipping the lads up and everything else, but from ability-wise, Mark, he didn't look great to me. And I know you kind of touched on this on Monday, mate. You think this is a little bit pointless, really, don't you?
Yeah, I get the influence around the squad, and I get what Eddie Howe says about him and being, good around the team and around especially some of the players coming in. Giving him the captaincy for somebody who we know isn't going to play an awful lot. He's not going to jump ahead of Shaw, Byrne, or Botman. So it seems like it does seem like a pointless appointment. On the flip side, I think if he'd been declared as club captain rather than just I think if that makes a difference in the way that you kind of view it, because you look at the likes of Mark Noble at West Ham, who was kind of designated as club captain, wasn't going to play all the time, would get the captain's armband if he came on and stuff, and that's an influence in the background. And I think that would be more fair a viewpoint. If he's going to be club captain, you're going to have a captain on the pitch. Then that works a little bit differently, in my opinion. Yeah. But I just think he's not gonna jump ahead of those three. So having him just as the designated captain, it just does seem a little daft to me. It does seem like a pointless appointment unless you go down that Mark Noble sort of route.
Yeah, it's interesting, PK, bring you in here. So that's a good comment by Robbie, is the status of a captain what it used to be. There was a comment earlier on about Darren Eales and the American influence potentially could bring to the team. This kind of thing stinks of American sports to me, where the captain doesn't even play and he's just behind the scenes, whipping the guys up, almost acting like a bit of a coach, and for me, that's total not a horse shit for me. That this is English football, this is the Premier League. Your captain's on the pitch with the armband on, that's your captain. He's on the field. He's there to get the players up and firing for the game. Where the chips are down, the captain's the guy that rallies them all up. He's not in the stands. He's not in the dressing room or whatever, mate. So I'm not buying this at all, mate. But what's your take on it? Do you think it's a good move by Eddie Howe, or do you think it's just a little bit of PR to keep Lascelles happy, and Trippier is really going to be the captain, as was mentioned in the comment before?
I think it's a little of both, to be honest. I think that he's respected in the dressing room. I think he's respected around the club, and I've got that. And as Lee's saying, that's good management. I think it's good management. I think he will be club captain. Absolutely. What's Eddie Howe going to do with saying, by the way, Jamaal, you've had another shit pre-season. You're not up to it. You're not very good. You retain the captaincy, by the way, because how do you replace him? What do you get for Lascelles if you sell him? 8 million quid, maybe 10 million maximum. You got to replace him if you sell him, haven't you? Because we know Kieran Clark's gone, Fernandez's legs have gone already. So you need to replace him. So if he's happy to be in and about the club and play League Cup games or whatever, and play some league games if Shearer or Byrne or Botman are unavailable, then I'm all right with that. You're right. Trippier or Wilson will captain the team. Week in, week out. Trippier for me, I like a defender as a captain myself, but I've got no problem with it. By the way, we've signed 2 players to replace you, Jamaal, and I'm going to strip you from the captaincy as well. It is what it is. I think really you need a team of captains, don't you? I wrote a piece a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago now, on the lack of leadership at Newcastle United. We had no leaders at all in that club. And we've signed leaders. We signed January. We're signing them again, I think, through this summer. I don't think it really matters who the club captain is. I think Killer Kilcline came in as captain under Keegan, and he was still club captain. I think Fernandinho was club captain, at Manchester City last year. He didn't play that many games. And as you said, Mark Noble was captain at West Ham, club captain, didn't play many games. Don't think it matters too much.
Yeah, Mark, you want to add a bit to this, mate, don't you?
Yeah, I kind of PK's taking a little bit there about captains in the leadership on the pitch. You expect now to have multiple leaders throughout the side. You mentioned the American sort of side of things. I think some of the times the Americans do get a little bit of grief for the way that they do their sports teams and stuff.
As Mark said,
they're quite quick to jump on them. Don't mind a cheerleader or two, to be fair. But if you look at something like the NFL, they have, yes, their squads are much, much bigger. They have different teams for offense and defense, but you have team captains on each of those areas. So that model of multiple captains is the way that you kind of look at a Premier League side now. You've got to have multiple people with those leadership qualities to be able to carry the team forward. You've got Trippier, you've got Burn, and Botman's got those to come. You've got Bruno, you have Wilson. So there are plenty of players in that side that can carry on that leadership role when Lascelles isn't playing.
That's what Lee and Morgan are saying as well, mate. In the comments they agree with you too, and even to you too, Davey. Yeah, so you're right, guys. I mean, I'm just, for me, call me traditional, old-fashioned, whatever you want to call me. For me, the captain is on the football pitch. There's so much of the game that changes, and so much for the better, of course. But so much of the game doesn't need to be changed. Now, if you think about, you go say outside of Newcastle, Premier League 11, who's the best captain? You start talking about Tony Adams, Vieira, Keane, John Terry, Gerrard, Shearer. What do they all have in common? They all played. They weren't on the sidelines rooting everybody on. I know the game moves on and stuff, but for me, your captain has to be an influence on the pitch. Even captains who, aren't, I wouldn't say brilliant superstars, like Connor Cody at Wolves, for example, steady player, but a good influence, and he's always on the pitch. I don't buy into this whole thing. For me, it's very much I think it is very much a modern day thing, and Lascelles is so important because he's the club captain. But if he doesn't play for the first 8 games and we're going an 8-game winning streak, he's not a captain for me. He's just a squad player.
Do you think anyone gives a fuck about that? I don't think they do. Lee got it in the comments. Multiple captains on the pitch.
Yeah,
nobody really gives a fuck who the club captain is or whatever. I think.
I know.
Smoke and mirrors.
But when he's on Sky Sports giving it, club captain Jamaal Lascelles is saying, "Oh yeah, we've done really well and the lads are doing really well." So, we haven't fucking played in about 12 weeks, mate. We've won every game. If he comes in the week after, we're shit. Yeah, we're shit. We get beat 4-0 by fucking Wigan in the cup or something because he's playing. Club captain Jamaal Lascelles. I just don't buy it. For me, a captain is a player who's on the pitch. It's not a player who's in the sidelines. I just, I love Eddie Howe and I love everything that he's doing at the club. But for me, this is utter horse shit. Your captain plays every week. Your captain plays. If your captain doesn't play that week, he's not the captain for the game. He might be the club captain if he's injured or if he's off form or something. Then fair enough. He's not playing. Still the club captain. But he will inevitably come back into your squad. If Steven Gerrard had been shit at Liverpool, he would have been the club captain. He would have been on the bench. Jamie Carragher would have been the club captain. So for me, Kieran Trippier is going to be the captain next season. And Jamaal Lascelles will just be like a fucking fan in the crowd for me. So I'm not buying it, mate. I'm sorry, lads. I think it's utter nonsense, to be honest. As Keane would say, utter nonsense, in my opinion. So what we've got, so BT's talking about ASM. We'll bring it up later on. But so we've got Morgan saying Shearer was still a captain through his long-term injuries. But the difference was, Morgan, Shearer was always going to come back in the side because Shearer was Shearer. Lascelles won't get back in the side unless somebody gets injured. Let's face it, he's not anywhere near as good as Botman, Burn or Shaw, is he? You just said that before, PK. Shearer was Shearer. Shearer would have walked in the side on crutches, especially that time when he was the captain. Lascelles will not get in this team because he's shit. Captain should lead by example. Exactly, Mark. I'm with you on that, mate.
We probably haven't got time to discuss this, but was Alan Shearer a good captain for Newcastle United?
I suppose if you look at what we did, we got the cup finals, didn't we? We qualified for Champions League, so you got to argue that he was because he was the captain when we did that.
Yeah, but that's because he scored fucking goals.
I mean, Kevin Nolan was a good captain for Newcastle as well.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I was just asking an open question, but it does take me back to when he took that penalty off Paul Robinson against Sheffield Wednesday. Was that good captaincy or was that fucking selfishness?
Did he score though?
Of course he did. Of course he did. We beat them 8-0. We beat them 8-0 and he got 5 goals. But should he have given it to a young player? Probably poor captaincy. But anyway, that's probably one for a different day.
Well, as you can tell, we are very split on this. Me in particular.
Yes.
Probably tell. I'm on one tonight about this, but yeah, I mean, as you guys say, whoever's on the pitch will be looked at as the captain of that day, really. But yeah, for me, I'm just not buying it. But we're going to move on to the next category here, which possibly might spark some more controversy. So Joe Shelby is a player who does polarize opinion and amongst the fan base. So there's been news coming out that John Joe has got 3 more games to earn a new contract. So just to quote what he said, this is off Craig Cope here on Twitter. He says, I've got 3 games to get another year, and I should do that this season. I mean, I'd be a bit worried if I didn't. You're always playing for a new contract. I'm not thick. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 30, but I do look about 40. So fair play to John Joe for having a bit of crack there as well. Mark, just to bring you in, because I've ranted too much about Lascelles, I'll let everyone hear you talk for a minute. What's your take on John Joe, mate? Do you think this is a good move by the club, or do you think that this could stifle a long staff or a Willock or something like that, or Elliot Anderson or somebody?
Can I just jump in and go with Lee's comment, Shelvey for captain?
Well, at least he'll be fucking playing, Lee. That's my point. At least he'll be playing.
He might not be playing.
Well,
he's got more chance than Lascelles. Sorry, Mark. Go on, sorry.
It's one of those. This is going to happen. It's 3 games. It's not like I don't think there's any choice with this unless he was to be sold. It's Howe's choice whether to play him. So even if he gets the extra year, he's not necessarily going to stifle somebody's progress by being there. It may give the option to actually get some money for him instead of for him going for free at the end of the contract. It's one of those where he's a good squad player to have around. He's likely to start the season in that midfield again with Joe Linton and with Bruno. So the extra year is going to happen whether anybody likes it or not. I think you would be very worried as Shelby if you weren't going to get those 3 games. So it's going to happen. I'm not convinced that it's going to stifle anybody's progress in that regards.
What's your take, PK? I know Shelby can sometimes annoy you, mate, as a player. As good as he has been under Howell, must be said. As good as he has been.
12 months ago, I would have driven him to fucking Middlesbrough to go and sign for Middlesbrough on a free. I thought he was appalling. I thought he ran through treacle. I thought he was unfit. He must have loved Steve Bruce's training or lack of training, because he's quite a lazy player, isn't he? He looks sharp. He looks quicker. He looks fitter under Eddie Howe. Just looks a much better player. Would I have him as my first team? Possibly at the moment. It depends if we splash the cash, does it not? But if we splash the cash on a Paqueta, he's the first one out for me. Is Shelvey. I couldn't give a shit whether he gets an extra 12 months or not. I think he's been a good servant for us. He does try. He's susceptible with his pace. Good quality midfielders run past him too easily, unfortunately. But there's no better footballer, I think, at our club than pinging Hollywood balls that go right out wide. I think he's got a phenomenal range of passing. There's not many players in the country that can pass a football like him. But is the game passing him by? It's maybe just too quick for him. Extra 12 months, I can give a fuck either way, to be honest. Yeah, I'm apathetic on that one.
On his day, I've flattened you all my Lascelles rant. On his day, I think Shelvey there's no other midfielder in England like Shelvey. And I think he's been unlucky not to have got her in around the England squad for a while. Just before we get some comments from Shelvey, guys, got to pull this comment up from David if Mark doesn't hit the button before me. So we've got a great comment. Is that you? A great comment from David Beach here. This is easily the most intelligent site for news and views on the two. And well done, fellas. Thank you so much, mate. That is an awesome comment, and we really appreciate that. If you haven't, mate, please subscribe. Plenty more. Yeah, 5 in the post. There'll be plenty more chats like this for you, mate. So if you haven't subbed already, please do so. But we really, really appreciate that. So Lee's back in the comments as well. He's saying you may get another year extension but I suspect he'll be collecting spelks in his arse, yeah, which is probably about right. Him and Lascelles can play like some kind of Nintendo DS or Switch together on the bench while they're sitting doing fuck all.
Tic-tac-toe on the bench.
Tic-tac-toe. I nearly showed my age. I nearly said Game Boy, and I thought, no, I'll show my age. We've got Jackie Nicholson there. I feel like Shelvey, but come on, he's not going to take us to the next level. Time to get rid. I agree with that I think that there's a lot of sentimental value around these players, but a lot of these players have been with us since we got promoted. I mean, most teams have moved on from these players. If we're going to be a progressive club, I think we have to do that inevitably. If you could swap Shelby for a Ward-Prowse or a Paqueta, as you said, PK, you'd do it tomorrow without blinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Mark's saying there should be okay with John Joe's backup. I still think we're going to sign Paqueta, so he could be used as a squad player. Let's hope so, mate, because I think that would be superb, to be honest with you. Shelby could work as a sitting midfield. He's got vision and distribution. Problem is, though, Robbie, he can't tackle for shit. That's the problem, mate. Free kicks galore.
But he can play as that He can play in that quarterback role against some of the not so strong sides.
That's very true.
He's fucked against the big clubs.
Oh yeah, against the Cities and the Liverpools, he's chasing shadows, and so Lee's saying Willock and Longstaff will see a lot more minutes this season. I agree with you, Lee. I think those two could have a really big season. Bruno and Joe Linton are currently undroppable. Again, I agree. Shelby's game time will be limited, extension or not. You're right, and it might be just having senior pros around, because Eddie Howard did do a bit of that at Bournemouth, Mark, didn't he? Had these senior pros around, even when other players came in, didn't it, to kind of replace them in the starting lineup. So we've got there for instance.
Well, I was going to just say as well, just some of those senior pros became the undroppable ones as well at times. Some of them really stepped to the play. And how has that effect on those players and getting the best out of them? And we've seen the improvement already in Shelvey. So I mean, he could force his way. He does need to learn how to tackle if he is going to play that sort of that role further back. But his, like PK says, his distribution is brilliant at times. So
it's absolutely superb. It's just a shame he hasn't got positional sense. I think as Lee's saying there in the comments as well, that at least we won't get to see him at centre half. If only he had a positional sense, he could be a phenomenal centre half as well, to be honest with you. A couple of other comments coming in, guys. Loads of them tonight, guys. Thank you so much. This is awesome. So I'll throw this one at you, actually, Mark, because we were looking at this before, weren't we? Anyone know if Sesko's agent also represents Haidara? We assume he's here to discuss Sesko, but yeah, he does represent a few players, mate, doesn't he? In Salzburg, I think that's what he said.
Don't know is the honest answer to that. I mean, he does look like an interesting prospect. You know, he scored a lot of goals in Austrian League 2, so it's an interesting one to have if he does represent. I mean, like you say, he's going to represent others, but it's another interesting one that's going to be linked and potentially in the mold of an Ekatike deal, maybe as well. Not all upfront money, which is going to be the key now, I think.
Yeah, I just wonder where all the ITK wankers are that never pulled this one out.
You never know, mate. You never know. They're taking them on. It's like that scene out of Game of Thrones with Jon Snow against all the army.
That's 2 hits this week because nobody came up with a Darren Eales.
Not one person.
So
I did cheekily tweet where were the ITKs. Fucking keyboard warriors.
That's a fair comment by BT as well. I think the new contract could be that we don't lose a fee for Shelby as and when we sell him potentially, which is quite often what happens in football. This is a good one for you, PK. Actually, before we move on to the other subject, is Harrison was asked about his future and he responded, "We'll see what happens." Jesse Marsh said that his player has unintentionally brought attention to his situation, but confirmed there had been interest. That to me sounds like a lad who wants to move, mate, doesn't it?
He's got no loyalty to Leeds, has he? You know, I presume he's a Manchester lad because he came from Manchester City's youth academy.
I'm not sure. I'll have a look at that, mate. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So he was on loan at Leeds for a couple of years, and then they signed him permanently for like 10 million quid, something like that. So I don't think he's a Leeds lad. Unless he's a Leeds lad that went to sea, who knows? But
Stoke, is he from, Mark?
He's from Stoke. He spent youth career, well, according to Wikipedia, who is the Bible, not.
He went to New York, didn't he? He was at New York City. Yeah.
And then he went to BlackRock FC, Manhattan SC. So he spent time, obviously, in America, New York City FC. Then he's obviously with Manchester City as part of that group. and then the loan deals, and then the move on. So he's got no historic loyalty to Leeds. He's got no ties to there in the past. So
is it a good time to remind our viewers that Leeds have sold their best 2 footballers? Are they a sinking ship? I'm not being funny. They've signed a lot. They spent a lot of money. Spent more money than us, I think. They've signed a lot of players, and I've never heard of one of them.
No.
Leeds could be right in the shit. Are they going for mercenaries? Who knows? Maybe he can see it. Maybe he wants out. Maybe it's all bullshit.
But that being said, they have got great fans, as Robbie said. Bang those like guys. Thank you so much, Robbie. We do appreciate that, mate. Yes, bang the likes, guys, as much as you possibly can. But I think we've got another comment there about Elliot Anderson. Actually, PK, I'll throw that one to you because I know you're a big fan of the lad. Me too. I think he's looked great in pre-season. But Sean Taylor saying, I'm a bit worried how many games Anderson will play if he doesn't go out on loan. I think it's all down to the lad, isn't it, PK, to prove that he's worth.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He's not going to want to go out on loan, is he? If Eddie was bigging him up over in Austria, wasn't he? He said he liked what he saw. He was very positive. He's very confident on the ball. And don't forget, we're going to 5 subs this season. That gives 2 extra places. Well, I don't know how many people are allowed to sit on the bench. Probably fucking 15. But like the NFL,
9
I don't know.
now, I think, isn't it?
So I think it's been 9 anyway. But now you can bring 5 subs on. Players will be happier to be on the bench because they're going to get game time. And of course, we're going to be going for 3 trophies. So it's a long season, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a one for you. One to throw at you, Mark, actually. So Francisco, is it Javier Ruiz? That's a great name, that. I didn't like Shelby's attitude during games. As much as Miggy gets blasted, he's the heart of motivation for the team and has a strong effect on the pitch. Yeah, Miggy does work his nuts off, Mark, doesn't he? And I think Shelby can sometimes have that petulant look about him, Mark, can't he? But I don't know if is that just his demeanor? Is that just the way he is? Like Michael Ballack had that, didn't he? Much better player than Shelby, by the way. But he had that.
Please, let's not compare the two directly. Yeah? It's Jesus, hell, that's putting him on a high note. But yeah, I think there's an element of that because Shelby just does look disinterested a lot of the time. But I think that's just his face. He just has that look about him all the time, regardless of whether he's happy or sad or whatever. But he doesn't exude anything to motivate you as a footballer, does he? Whereas, at least, like you said, at least Miggy is throwing himself around all over the place to get involved and try and raise the tempo and really get stuck in. You just don't see that from Shelby.
They're two very different. They're two very different footballers. Miggy's all energy and lacking in some talent. You know me. I love Miggy. Shelby's got a languid style, but I tell you what, when Lee and I were down at Ellen Road in January, he did not lack for motivation when he ran the length of the pitch to the away fans having scored the winner.
I've got to say, I remember seeing that. Just a weird bit on Joe Shelby. I don't watch this program, as Mark knows I loathe it. But have you seen the girl on Love Island that looks like Joe Shelby? Have you seen this? This is her here. She's getting some kind of comparisons to Joe Shelby. I do feel a bit sorry for her, but I can say it, to be fair. If Joe suddenly had a hair transplant and put a little bit of mascara on, he might possibly pass for that girl. God bless her. So,
has anybody done a mock-up of him with long dark hair yet? So that might be the next one to be done.
That'd be that. Yeah. If there's anyone who can Photoshop that on this squad, mate, we're looking at the man right there. You're the man for that, mate. You're the man for that. But
get Mark's comment up.
Get Mark's comment up. What's his? Shelby looks like a bulldog licking piss off of Nettle.
A robber's dog.
Nice, very nice. I know. I must admit, I think it would take a few beers, Mark, wouldn't it? To be fair, she's. I don't watch that show, but she's obviously still in it, so she must be doing something right, mate. So what else have we got here? A couple of more comments before we move on. So Morgan saying Leeds have spent the cash wisely in his opinion. Fair dues. We've got Robbie saying this is. I think he's talking about Leeds there. I'm not sure about that one, Robbie. We've got Jackie saying, let's go and fucking berserk and spend 100 million. I love a bit of that. Jackie, absolutely. All work and no play makes everybody dull, mate. Good on you. I love that. So yeah, I think moving on to the next comment there, the next bits of ground there. So just looking towards the next game, I suppose, in the pre-season running, which is we've got Benfica. It's not till next Tuesday, PK. Obviously Benfica are a decent side, aren't they, mate? We look like we struggled against Mainz for me. Me and Mark did a show obviously on the Monday night, and I just think we looked a bit leggy. We looked a bit easy to get at. I think the goal, Mark called it the part of the Red Sea. when we conceded. Benfica are a tasty side, mate. Are you a bit worried about this? Or again, are you not bothered about the results, more about fitness, really?
Couldn't give a shit. I watched that Mainz game, and actually I thought we were the much better team for 90 minutes in that game. Dubravka was a bit culpable for not coming off his line, which, you know, is the story of his Newcastle United career, unfortunately, which is why I think Nick Pope will be number one. That was was that last week's show? Can't remember. Am I worried about Benfica? Again, it'll be a good trip out for some of the YouTubers who will be going across to Lisbon. I was at the Stadium of Light.
Stop it, Lee. Naughty.
Young Adam. I was at the Stadium of Light the last time we played them over there, and it was our last away game in the UEFA Cup back in 2013. It was just an amazing occasion. I don't give a fuck about the result. We just need more legs or more minutes into the legs. Look, I think the German season starts before our season. So Mainz, same with 1860 Munich. I think they played 4 or 5 pre-seasons before they played us. Mainz presumably will have been the same. It's just about getting minutes into the legs. Just the promotion season got beat 6-0 or 6-1 off Leyton Orient.
Remember that, Jesus.
We got beaten off York 1-0. You know, I couldn't give a fuck. We're getting bigger games here. You know, I think we're playing Burnley behind closed doors in Portugal on Saturday.
I think so. That's another one.
Again,
yeah.
Just about getting minutes into the legs and getting the likes of Botman to understand how we play. I mean, he's probably a classy enough player to be able to pick it up pretty quickly. And for Eddie to find his best combinations and just to give a bit of confidence into the likes of Elliot Anderson. Maybe Matty Longstaff will get some minutes. I know he played for the under-21s today. It's just about minutes. It's not about the result. Nobody gives a fuck.
That's true. Mark, that's a good comment there to bring you in, Mark. Do you think we'll see something like a closer start in 11 against Benfica, or do you think that's going to be saved for the weekend games against Atlanta and Bilbao?
I think the fact that those two come back to back, I think you're probably going to maybe see one. We talked about this, I think, last week, didn't we, where you might see half and half against each side. Maybe against Benfica. They are a big side. They have just thumped Fulham 5-1 in a pre-season friendly. I don't know what that means. It is pre-season, so nobody really seems to care too much. BT just does that as well. So maybe I think you will start to see the direction coming, and we touched on this last week as well, where the more you get into this now, you start to see who is likely to become the starters. That they're still sort of playing for those places, but it becomes more and more obvious the closer you get to the season who the likely starters will be. So yeah, maybe we will see a little bit more of an idea against Benfica, given the stature of that club.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting one there that Benfica have got Adel Taarabt. Remember him? God, he was a right baller. Wasn't he at one point in the Championship? I remember he was on. Don't fancy see. Yeah, he was at Spurs and at the QPR, wasn't it? With
never quite made it in the Premier League.
No, he didn't. But I was, if he ties bloody Lascelles and knots, that'll be be an interesting one to see. But yeah, we've got a comment from Lee as well there. Are we lads at Atlanta, Bilbao? I am at Atlanta with Mr. Carter. Sadly, Mark can't come because he's got daddy duties on. I think, Mark, haven't you that weekend, so he can't come. But are you there for Bilbao as well, PK? Are you doing both?
Nah, just going on the Friday. No, I'm hosting a barbecue on the Saturday for the family, and then I'm at a wedding on the Monday. But there you go. There's my social calendar for you.
You can tell you're making up for the COVID, mate. You're making up for the lack of freedom.
I've had a fucking beer for nearly 2 weeks. Nothing. Not a drop of alcohol has passed my lips.
Bloody Bar Loco will be struggling, mate. They'll be wondering what's going on with the take.
Fucking wasting away here, mate. Wasting away.
As Lee says, he's going to sleep on the table at Loco. It's brilliant, mate. I love that. We've got a bit of breaking news on Sky there. Just PK whacked that in the private chat. So Stoke City are close to signing Dwight Gale from Newcastle on a free transfer. There was talk that he was having a medical earlier on. PK wasn't there. So, if Dwight Gale or Shite Snail, as I refer to him as, does go, there's two sides to a Dwight Gale for me. There's the Dwight Gale that got us out of the Championship. He was an unbelievable goal scorer, the best in that division by a country mile. To quote Mark, head and shoulders above everybody else, because he was. When he came into the Premier League, he wasn't quite a Premier League player. And as the seasons went on, the more the league evolved for me, the more and more Gale looked like he was struggling at that level. And I think it was just a case of, like Shearer's even said as well, we hold on to these players too long. And I think that's the problem with Gale. Do you think he'll get back on the goal trail, mate, if he goes down to Stoke?
You asking me?
Oh, yeah, asking you, PK. Sorry.
Mark's asleep. You know what? I hope he does. I've always been a big fan of Dwight Gale, more so than yourself, obviously. Problem we had with him was that he was going to get 30 goals in that championship season under Rafa, and he did his hamstring, didn't he, in the December, January, and he's never quite looked the same footballer. He looked like he was he lost a yard or two of pace. Psychologically, I think his head had gone a little bit. He was too scared to open up his legs a little bit, so to speak, for fear of doing his hamstring again. So he's never really been the footballer that he was for us. I wish him well. I wish every footballer who's going well. You know, these people have been around the club for too long and need to go. But yeah, free transfer for him means he'll will free up wages, particularly probably won't have to subsidise that one. We'll, I guess, have to pay his contract up if it's on a free transfer, which is a couple of years, but that's neither here nor there. It's not my money again. I couldn't give a shite. But as Lee says in the comments there, and he said it earlier, it 100% means a new striker's coming in. There's no way they're going into a season with Callum Wilson and Chris Wood. Not a fucking chance.
I'm just going to say, Mark, to bring you in on that one, are you with Lee on that, mate? Do you think that means that there's been a breakthrough?
I think definitely. I think that you allow it to happen because you know something's going to happen. You're absolutely right, PK. You don't go into a season with Callum Wilson and Chris Wood as your only two strikers.
Mike Ashley would have, but these guys will not.
There's a difference in the club these days, so I think you've definitely got to have somebody coming in now to fill in that second striker berth. I'm not going to say third because I think he'll step ahead of Chris Woods in that regards, whoever really it is.
Absolutely. Well, we need to get another striker in. So hopefully, if it is one of these young, exciting strikers, then that's something that we can, we can all get behind. So just to finish up, guys, we're nearly done an hour, so we'll try and wrap up. But there's just one last category we kind of wanted to cover. I want to pass this one over to you, Mark, because this is your baby, mate. So have a chat with the viewers, mate, about what Ever More FPL is all about.
Well, we decided to go with this, and obviously I know there are other ones out there, but we have set up an FPL league this season, an Ever More FPL league. So I've put the link in the description underneath the video. So if you do fancy joining in, we are potentially looking at maybe something for the end. So for whoever wins, we haven't quite got to that point of discussion yet, but for now, yeah, if you want to get involved with it. We'd love you to join us. We've already got, I think, 3 or 4 of us involved already. You're going to beat me. I am dreadful. I think you targeting the Lynch man for this one.
So, the Lynch man is very, very good. He's been in my league for since last season. He's shit hot, Lynch man.
Yeah,
he's shit at the league. He's very good at FPL.
The Lynchman fancies himself as the Pep Guardiola of the FPL. So maybe if you finish it with the Lynchman, we might send you a mug just for the crack.
The Lynchman reckons he's the best FPL player ever to grace it.
Sensational. as always, absolutely brilliant. But as Mark says, it's in the comment below, guys, in the description. So yeah, if you're up for it, click the link, and we'll see you there. And then we'll have a bit of crack with it. Hopefully, Mark won't as the episodes roll in.
Absolutely right. You can all laugh at just how bad Chris doesn't normally do this, but he is going to get involved in it this season.
I will.
I am shocking at it. I am.
Maybe put the league table up every week and see how we get.
Exactly. I think we'll have to, but I could very well be the Steve Bruce break and bacon. I think of this table. I'm not fancying my chances, to be honest with you. I might get lucky. You never know. But we are going to wrap up as Lee Forster is saying in the comments. PK's itching to watch the Lionesses.
Good luck, Lionesses.
I know Mark probably will as well. And just one more for Mark. Dybala's in the Churton club with Sesko, but I've no idea.
God, he's just signed for fucking Roma.
I was going to say, I know Jose loves the tune, but I'm not sure he's dragged him to Churton club for his initiation ceremony. But brilliant. But listen, guys, thank you so much for the comments. We absolutely love it. We love the interactions. It's brilliant. As I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We've got loads of more content coming before the season starts. I think we're sitting on about 1,353 subs. We'd love you to get us to 1,500. And then ideally, if we can get that next milestone of 2,000, it'd be absolutely brilliant. It really helps the channel grow. So until then, this is us signing off. Let's keep supporting that Team McCoy United. Mark and I will be back on Monday with another What's Going On. And then Wednesday, we'll be back with another podcast. And we'll be talking all things Toon. So have a good night, guys. We'll catch you later.
Cheers, lads.
See you guys.